The emergency room fell silent when the world's most powerful billionaire heard the words no parent is ever prepared to hear. His little daughter had only 24 hours to live unless someone could solve the mysterious condition destroying her body faster than any disease the doctors had ever seen. Specialists from every corner of the country had failed. Million-dollar equipment produced no answers. Private helicopters rushed in the greatest medical minds, yet every hour brought the child closer to death. Then, while fear and hopelessness filled the hospital, one quiet man standing in the corner finally spoke up with an idea that everyone else had ignored. That single moment changed everything, proving that wisdom, compassion, and courage can come from the most unexpected person. Before we continue, if you believe kindness deserves another chance in this world, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share this story with someone you care about, and subscribe to spread kindness. Every small action helps these powerful stories reach more people who still believe that humanity matters. Marcus Whitmore had built one of the largest technology companies in the world. Newspapers called him a genius, investors called him unstoppable, and competitors feared him. He owned private islands, luxury skyscrapers, and more wealth than entire cities. Yet none of those achievements mattered as he sat beside the hospital bed watching the tiny hand of his 8-year-old daughter, Emily, grow colder every passing hour. Machines surrounded her, their constant beeping becoming the soundtrack of his greatest nightmare. The brightest doctors explained complicated medical theories, but every explanation ended with the same heartbreaking conclusion. They had no cure. They had no answers. They could only slow the inevitable. Emily had always been different from her father. While Marcus measured success in profits and acquisitions, Emily measured life through kindness. She loved feeding birds in city parks, drawing colorful pictures for lonely patients in children's hospitals, and secretly leaving handwritten notes of encouragement wherever she went. Hospital staff quickly noticed that even while fighting unimaginable pain, Emily smiled at nurses who looked exhausted and thanked every cleaner who entered her room. Her gentle heart touched everyone around her, making the possibility of losing her almost unbearable. Outside the intensive care unit, the hospital transformed into a fortress of desperation. Security officers controlled every entrance. Television crews waited outside hoping for updates. Politicians offered assistance. International medical organizations volunteered their experts. The billionaire spared no expense. Experimental treatments arrived by private jet. Laboratories worked around the clock. Yet despite unlimited money and unlimited resources, Emily continued slipping away. Among the countless hospital employees was Daniel Brooks, a 53-year-old maintenance supervisor. Most people barely noticed him pushing his cart through quiet hallways. His faded uniform, tired eyes, and calm expression made him blend into the background. Years earlier, Daniel had worked as a rural emergency medic before family tragedy forced him to leave medicine and accept maintenance work to care for his elderly parents. Although he no longer practiced professionally, he never stopped studying medical journals in his free time, believing knowledge should never be abandoned simply because life changes direction. During his daily rounds, Daniel noticed something everyone else overlooked. Emily's condition seemed to worsen immediately after certain routine treatments. While specialists focused on advanced technology, Daniel quietly observed small details that others dismissed as coincidence. He watched patterns repeat themselves with remarkable consistency. Every instinct developed during his years as an emergency medic told him something unusual was happening. He wrestled with himself for hours. Speaking up could make him look foolish. Who would believe a maintenance supervisor over world-famous specialists? Still, every time he looked through the small glass window and saw Emily fighting to breathe, his conscience refused to stay silent. Finally, during another tense medical briefing, Daniel respectfully asked permission to share an observation. At first, several people dismissed him before he could even finish speaking. Some assumed stress had made him misunderstand what he had seen. Others reminded him that maintenance workers should focus on equipment, not medicine. Marcus himself barely looked at the quiet stranger, exhausted after endless disappointments. But Daniel remained calm. Instead of claiming certainty, he simply explained the repeating pattern he had carefully documented over 2 days. He suggested that the illness might not be progressing naturally but could instead be triggered by a rare interaction between an uncommon environmental factor and a medication Emily had recently begun receiving. It sounded unlikely, almost impossible, yet it was specific enough to investigate. One young infectious disease specialist paused. Unlike others, she refused to dismiss evidence because of the person presenting it. She reviewed Daniel's handwritten notes and realized every recorded detail matched the official medical timeline perfectly. Curious rather than defensive, she convinced the team to run one final series of specialized tests. Those next few hours felt longer than entire years. Marcus remained beside his daughter's bed, holding her tiny hand while memories flooded his mind. He remembered missing birthdays because of business meetings. He remembered answering phone calls during family vacations. He remembered believing there would always be another tomorrow to become the father Emily deserved. Now tomorrow itself seemed uncertain. As laboratory results finally arrived, disbelief spread across the conference room. Daniel's observations had uncovered something extraordinary. Emily's immune system was not failing randomly. It was reacting to a combination of factors so rare that almost no hospital had ever documented it before. The treatment designed to help her had unknowingly intensified the hidden reaction. Doctors immediately changed course. The risky decision carried no guarantees, but for the first time since Emily entered the hospital, there was genuine hope. Hours passed. Then something remarkable happened. Emily's breathing slowly stabilized. Her dangerously high fever began dropping. Vital signs that had steadily worsened for days finally stopped declining. One nurse quietly wiped away tears after seeing the monitors display improvements she never expected to witness again. Marcus could hardly believe what he was seeing. He watched color gradually return to his daughter's face. For the first time in days, she opened her eyes for several seconds. Though weak, she recognized her father and managed the faintest smile. That tiny smile carried more value than every fortune Marcus had ever earned. The following morning brought confirmation no one dared expect. Emily had survived the critical 24-hour window. Recovery would still require weeks of treatment, but the immediate danger had passed. The impossible had become possible because one ordinary man refused to ignore what his heart believed was important. News spread quickly. Reporters celebrated the medical breakthrough. Television channels praised the hospital's efforts. Headlines focused on the billionaire's emotional relief. Very few initially mentioned Daniel. Marcus made sure that changed. During a public press conference, he stood before cameras with tears still visible in his eyes. Instead of speaking about money or advanced technology, he spoke about humility. He explained that every expert in the room possessed extraordinary knowledge, but true wisdom required listening to every voice, regardless of status or job title. He publicly thanked Daniel Brooks, calling him the man who gave his daughter another chance at life. The audience rose into a standing ovation. Daniel looked deeply uncomfortable with the attention. He insisted the doctors deserved the credit because they had the courage to investigate instead of protecting their pride. His humility impressed people even more than his remarkable observation. Marcus refused to let Daniel quietly disappear again. Instead of offering a luxury car or enormous cash reward, he asked Daniel what dream he had abandoned years earlier. Daniel admitted he had always hoped underserved rural communities could receive better emergency medical training but never had the resources to build such programs. Within months, Marcus established the Emily Hope Foundation. Rather than creating another building bearing his family name, the foundation funded emergency medical education in remote communities where skilled help often arrived too late. Daniel became its director, training thousands of volunteers whose knowledge would eventually save countless lives. Emily recovered completely. As she grew older, she often visited hospitals with her father, carrying colorful drawings just as she had before becoming ill. Only now Marcus always walked beside her instead of behind his business schedule. Board meetings became shorter. Family dinners became sacred. Wealth stopped measuring success. Time, compassion, and presence became his greatest investments. Years later, Daniel visited one of the Foundation's training centers where hundreds of volunteers practiced life-saving skills. A young trainee asked him what inspired him never to stay silent despite everyone doubting him. Daniel simply smiled. He explained that courage is not speaking because you know you are right. Courage is speaking because staying silent might cost someone their future. Marcus overheard those words from across the room. He realized they perfectly described the greatest lesson of his entire life. He had spent decades believing power came from money, influence, and authority. Yet the person who truly changed his family's destiny possessed none of those things. Real greatness belonged to someone who cared enough to notice small details, remained humble enough to keep learning, and brave enough to speak when it mattered most. Before this story comes to its conclusion, please tell us in the comments, have you ever seen one small act of courage completely change someone's life? We'd truly love to read your story, ****. Emily eventually grew into a compassionate young woman who dedicated her career to improving children's healthcare. Every scholarship awarded through the foundation reminded families that miracles rarely begin with extraordinary people. More often, they begin with ordinary hearts choosing compassion over fear, humility over pride, and action over silence. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with your family and friends, leave your thoughts below, and subscribe to spread kindness. Your support helps keep inspiring stories of hope, kindness, and second chances alive for people who may need them today. The greatest miracle was never that a billionaire's daughter survived against impossible odds. The greatest miracle was that one overlooked man refused to believe his voice was too small to matter. His courage reminded the world that kindness listens, humility learns, and hope often arrives through the quietest person in the room. Sometimes the difference between tragedy and tomorrow is simply one brave soul choosing to speak when everyone else remains silent. That is a lesson worth carrying for the rest of our lives.